Captain Elena Santiago's heart pounded as she stood before the Galactic Federation Council. The massive crystal chamber dwarfed her, its vaulted ceiling displaying a real-time map of all Federation territories, none of which included Earth. 200 alien representatives stared down at her, with expressions ranging from boredom to outright disdain. "Ambassador Santiago, your time allocation expires in 5 minutes," announced the robotic translator. "Please state Earth's value proposition expediently." Elena had practiced this speech for months, but now discarded it entirely. The carefully crafted diplomatic pleasantries would fall flat against the wall of condescension she sensed. Behind her, the holographic display of Earth looked pathetically small compared to the sprawling galactic empires represented here. The Duraxian ambassador, a 12-foot mantis-like being whose species had mastered quantum computing before humans invented the wheel, interrupted her with a dismissive click of his mandibles. "Your species has existed for a mere blink of cosmic time. You've barely survived your own destructive tendencies. What could Earth possibly offer a civilization like ours?" A memory flashed through Elena's mind. Her grandfather, a veteran, telling stories by firelight about how humanity's greatest advances came through its darkest hours, how innovation was born from necessity, from struggle. She straightened her spine and stepped forward, breaking protocol by approaching the central podium, a move that sent ripples of shock through the assembly. "We shall present you conflict," she declared, her voice cutting through the chamber with unexpected authority. The silence lasted 3 seconds before the Federation representatives erupted in theatrical laughter. The Duraxian's exoskeleton vibrated with mirth as he turned to his colleagues. "The primitives think we need their barbarism. How charmingly archaic." Only one being wasn't laughing. A shadowy figure in the far corner whose 6 eyes narrowed thoughtfully as it studied the human with newfound interest. Elena remained unmoved by their mockery. "You misunderstand," she continued, her voice still steady. "I don't offer violence. I offer growth." This quieted some of the laughter, replacing it with confused murmurs. "For 10,000 years, your Federation has maintained perfect stability," Elena said, gesturing to the historical timeline displayed on a nearby wall. "And in that time, how many truly transformative innovations have you produced?" The council grew uncomfortably quiet. The Duraxian's mandibles clicked in agitation. "On Earth, our greatest achievements came from our greatest challenges," Elena continued. "Our medical breakthroughs were born from plagues. Our space technology emerged from cold wars. Our renewable energy revolution from climate crisis." She brought up her own display, showing human history, messy, violent, but undeniably dynamic. "We don't celebrate our conflicts, but we recognize their value. Pressure creates diamonds. Friction sparks fire. Opposition builds strength." Pretty metaphors, scoffed a gelatinous being near the front. "But meaningless. Your species still fights petty wars while we explore the cosmos in harmony." Elena nodded. "And yet, we achieved faster than light travel just 3 centuries after discovering electricity. How long did it take the Federation?" The uncomfortable silence deepened. "Conflict drives adaptation," Elena pressed. "It forces innovation, cooperation, and growth in ways that comfort and consensus never can. Earth offers the Federation something you've forgotten: the creative power of constructive disagreement." The Duraxian rose to his full height, towering over Elena. "We have no need for your primitive philosophy, human. The Council's decision stands. Earth will remain an observer entity with no voting rights." Elena bowed slightly, accepting the verdict without argument. "As you wish, Ambassador. But remember my words when you face a challenge that cannot be solved by consensus." As she turned to leave, the shadowy figure in the corner, Admiral Vex of the Sentinel Fleet, sent a private message directly to her translator. "The comfortable rarely see danger until it devours them. We should talk, human." Little did the Council know that beyond the borders of their carefully maintained harmony, an ancient enemy was stirring. one that would soon make Alina's words seem prophetic. 3 solar cycles later, Alina had almost adjusted to her role as Earth's ignored representative when emergency klaxons blared through the Federation capital for the first time in 700 years. "What's happening?" she asked her assistant, a multi-limbed Tellurian whose translucent skin had turned pale blue with fear. "The Vesperi. They've returned," the assistant whispered, multiple eyes blinking rapidly. "Impossible. They were just a legend." The council chamber, normally a model of decorum, descended into chaos as live feeds displayed the unthinkable, an armada of crystalline ships swarming through Federation space, stripping planets bare in hours. The Vesperi Hive, a collective consciousness controlling billions of drone ships, had emerged from uncharted space, consuming everything in their path. Alina watched with growing horror as the Federation's response unfolded. They established a 12-tier response committee, debated procedural protocols, and dispatched unarmed diplomatic envoys, all of which were vaporized before transmitting more than initial greetings. Their military vessels, elegant and imposing but designed for ceremonial parades rather than battle, crumbled against the Hive's weapons. 17 worlds gone in 6 days, reported Admiral Zex, his bioluminescent facial tentacles dimmed with shock. The Hive's computational efficiency is perfect. They anticipate every standard tactic. When the Vesperi obliterated the Proxima Centauri outpost, just 1 light year from Earth, Alina found herself summoned to an emergency session. The council chamber, once grandiose, now felt like a tomb with half the delegate seats empty. The Duraxian ambassador approached her, his earlier arrogance replaced by desperate humility. "Your species has evolved through conflict," he said, mandibles trembling. "You understand it in ways we have forgotten. Help us." Alina felt no satisfaction at the validation. "We'll need full member status and complete access to your technology archives," she responded immediately. "And I need a direct quantum link to Earth's military command." "Impossible," gasped a Federation security officer. "No non-member." The Duraxian silenced him with a gesture. "Grant the human whatever she requires," he ordered, his compound eyes reflecting the holographic displays of another Federation world falling to the Hive. "We no longer have the luxury of protocol." "They're doing what?" The Duraxian ambassador's exoskeleton rattled with indignation as he stormed into the Federation archives. The scene before him defied comprehension. General Maya Wang, a compact, battle-scarred human with artificial eyes that gleamed metallic silver, stood surrounded by holographic displays while her team dismantled precious Federation technology. Instead of studying weapons as expected, the humans were elbow-deep in communication relays, energy distribution nodes, and ancient transportation infrastructure schematics. "With respect, Ambassador," said Wang without looking up, her cybernetic fingers deftly manipulating a quantum router older than human civilization. "We're requisitioning these components." "For what purpose?" demanded the Federation's chief archivist, a gelatinous being quivering with distress as the humans repurposed priceless artifacts. "These are museum pieces, not weapons." Wang paused, fixing the aliens with her unsettling metallic gaze. "You're losing this war because you think in straight lines. Attack, defend, negotiate. The Hive is beating you because they think the same way, just faster and with more processing power." She projected a simulation showing Federation fleet movements against the Hive. Predictable, methodical, and consistently outmaneuvered. "Humans don't fight like this," Wang continued, gesturing to her most surprising team member, Dr. Aisha Chen, whose credentials listed her as an applied chaos theorist rather than a military strategist. "We fight dirty. We cheat. We break rules and expectations." Dr. Chen activated her own display, showing historical Earth conflicts where vastly outnumbered forces defeated superior enemies through guerrilla tactics, deception, and psychological warfare. "Your civilization eliminated internal conflict 10,000 years ago," Wang said, "which is admirable. But you forgot something crucial. Conflict drives adaptation. Pressure creates innovation. Humanity's greatest achievements came when our backs were against the wall. She held up a seemingly insignificant communication node. This obsolete tech. The hive won't have defenses against it because it's so primitive. Sometimes the most powerful weapon is the unexpected one. The Diraxian's compound eyes flickered between the displays, comprehension slowly dawning. You're not planning to outfight them. No, Wong confirmed with a predatory smile. We're going to outthink them. Humans have been fighting enemies larger and stronger than ourselves since we learned to throw rocks. We don't need to match the hive's strength. We need to exploit their weaknesses. She nodded to Dr. Chen, who activated a final simulation showing a radical new strategy that made the Federation officials gasp in disbelief. You can't be serious, whispered the archivist. That violates every principle of civilized warfare. Exactly, replied Wong. And that's why it might just work. This is suicide, muttered Captain Trell, his scaled skin flushing purple with stress as his ship, the Federation cruiser Indomitable, maintained position just outside the Epsilon Eridani system. Abandoning a resource-rich system to the enemy contradicts every strategic principle. Beside him, Lieutenant Commander Jackson, the human tactical officer assigned to his vessel, remained unnervingly calm. That's what makes it perfect, sir, she said, eyes fixed on the holographic display showing thousands of Federation civilians evacuating. The hive expects resistance, not an invitation. Throughout the system, as the last evacuation ships jump to safety, hundreds of seemingly insignificant objects remain behind. Fragments of debris, disabled satellites, and derelict mining equipment, all retrofitted by human engineers working around the clock. 3 days later, the hive arrived, a swarm of crystalline ships, flowing into the system with mathematical precision. As predicted, they immediately moved to harvest the abandoned infrastructure, extending biological tendrils into mining facilities and refineries. Aboard a cloaked observation vessel, Dr. Chen watched with clinical detachment as her creations, microscopic infiltration probes, activated. Infection commencing. She reported, using terminology that made the Federation officers uncomfortable. The probes, based on ancient Earth computer viruses, but built with Federation quantum technology, penetrated the semi-organic systems of the hive ships. Instead of attacking, they simply observed and transmitted. We're inside their network, Jackson announced, eyes widening as data flooded their screens. Sweet heaven, it's beautiful. The information revealed a revelation. The hive wasn't a single entity, but a democratic collective. Every decision required consensus from multiple subminds, making the hive extraordinarily powerful but unexpectedly vulnerable to disruption. Look at their resource allocation algorithms, Alina pointed out during the emergency council briefing. They're perfectly optimized for efficiency. No waste, no redundancy, no contingencies. She manipulated the display, highlighting the hive's decision trees. This is a civilization that has never needed to adapt quickly. They've never encountered an opponent that introduces deliberate chaos into the equation. The Federation's premier tactician, a being composed of sentient gas, swirled with agitation. You propose to exploit this weakness. How? Belina's smile was unsettling. By becoming everything they fear, unpredictable, inefficient, and seemingly irrational. Their entire evolutionary history is based on consuming predictable resources. We're going to become very unpredictable. This is most irregular, objected a Federation counselor. These tactics have no precedent in our military doctrine. Exactly, Alina replied. And that's precisely why the hive won't see us coming. The hive commander, if such a term applied to the distributed consciousness controlling the swarm, detected an anomaly. Sensors indicated massive resource deposits in the Procyon system. Rare minerals, exotic compounds, and harvestable energy in concentrations exceeding any previous discovery. The collective reached consensus in microseconds. Divert 40% of available harvesting units to exploit this unprecedented opportunity. 3,000 ships broke formation and surged toward Procyon, only to find nothing. Empty space, barren rocks. Sensors recalibrated, confusion rippled through the hive mind, consensus fractured. Meanwhile, in a repurposed Federation mining facility, Major Ash Khan, formerly of Earth's Psychological Warfare Division, smiled as he monitored the hive's reaction. "They took the bait," he reported. Again. Operation Chimera was humanity's answer to overwhelming force. A massive disinformation campaign targeting the hive's resource-focused intelligence. The humans had hijacked abandoned Federation broadcasting stations to create phantom signatures mimicking valuable deposits across 50 star systems. "We're effectively creating sensory hallucinations for an entity that has never experienced deception," explained Dr. Chen. "It's like introducing a virus to a population with no immune system." The results exceeded expectations. Hive ships chased ghostly readings across vast sectors, their consensus algorithms increasingly strained by contradictory data. Decision-making processes that once took microseconds now stretched to minutes as subminds debated the reliability of their sensory input. Meanwhile, Federation engineering teams, led by humans, deployed camouflage systems inspired by Earth's deep-sea creatures. Critical outposts vanished from hive sensors, their energy signatures masked by technology that mimicked natural background radiation. The octopus can change not just its color, but its texture and behavior to become functionally invisible, explained the human engineer to bewildered Federation scientists. "We're making your outposts implement the same principles, just with electromagnetic signatures instead of visual camouflage." For the first time since the invasion began, the hive's advance slowed. Ships that once moved with perfect coordination now paused, recalibrated, changed course unpredictably. In the war room, the Ganari war minister, a species with a proud warrior tradition, watched with growing indignation. "This isn't proper warfare," he protested, bioluminescent crests flashing with agitation. "Where are the formations? The glorious battles, that honorable confrontations? You're just tricking them." Elena, exhausted from 30 hours without sleep, fixed him with a piercing stare. "The most effective conflicts," she replied, "are the ones you win before a single shot is fired. My ancestors learned that lesson through millions of deaths. I'd prefer not to repeat the experience." She gestured to the display, showing hive ships circling in confusion. "They expected us to fight like you. Instead, we're fighting like us. And for the first time, they're losing." "Absolutely not." The Federation Ethics Committee's chairperson, a crystalline entity who communicated through patterned light emissions, pulsed with emphatic rejection. "Dr. Tanaka's proposal violates our most fundamental principles of cognitive sovereignty." Dr. Hiroshi Tanaka, a diminutive human neurologist with ancient wire-framed glasses and a perpetual cup of tea, remained unfazed by the committee's hostility. "With respect," he replied, sipping his tea calmly, "the hive violates those principles every day by forcibly assimilating sentient beings into its network." The committee chamber fell silent. 3 more Federation worlds had fallen that week, their populations absorbed into the hive consciousness. "Explain again," requested a Voldarian observer, her tendrils twisting with reluctant curiosity, "how this mimetic virus would function." Tanaka activated a holographic model of neural networks, both human and hive. "Any collective intelligence requires internal consistency to function," he explained. "Cognitive dissonance, circular reasoning, paradoxes, these are bugs in any thinking system. Even a hive mind must have safeguards against contradictory thoughts, and those safeguards can be overloaded." He displayed complex equations merging human psychological principles with Federation quantum theory. "We've analyzed the hive's communication patterns and discovered they're vulnerable to certain self-reinforcing information loops, what we call mimetic viruses. You propose to infect their thoughts." The chairperson's lights dimmed with horror. "Precisely," Tanaka confirmed. It's similar to how human organizations can be paralyzed by contradictory directives, or how paradoxes can temporarily crash logical systems. Despite ethical objections, the desperate situation forced approval. Working with Federation quantum communication experts, Tanaka's team encoded paradoxical thought structures into carrier waves matching the hive's internal frequencies. The deployment against a hive fleet approaching the heavily populated Rigel system was broadcast throughout Federation space. The results shocked even the operations architects. The perfect formations of hive ships suddenly destabilized. Some vessels spun in place, others accelerated in random directions. Communication channels filled with contradictory commands as the collective mind struggled to resolve irresolvable logical conflicts. Ship identification protocols failed catastrophically, causing vessels to attack their companions, identifying them as foreign entities. For the first time in recorded history, a hive fleet retreated in disarray. In the emergency council session that followed, Alina stood beside Dr. Tanaka as Federation representatives demanded explanations. "How is this possible?" asked the Diraxian, mandibles clicking with agitation. "You defeated their armada without firing a shot." "Throughout human history," Alina explained, "we fought as much with ideas as with weapons. The most powerful conflicts often happen in the mind." She gestured to the tactical display, where the fragmented hive fleet continued its chaotic retreat. Before today, the hive had never encountered a paradox, a thought that cannot be resolved through processing power alone. "We just introduced them to humanity's specialty, questions without answers." Dr. Tanaka adjusted his glasses, the logical equivalent of dividing by zero. He added with quiet satisfaction, "Sometimes the most devastating weapons aren't weapons at all." "This is insanity," muttered Commander Vex as their stealth vessel approached the massive structure floating in the darkness between stars. 3 small ships against the heart of the hive. General Wong, fully suited in experimental armor combining human and Federation technology, checked her weapons one final time. "Sometimes the smallest blade strikes the deepest," she replied. The scars on her face seemed more pronounced in the dim light of the insertion bay. Federation scientists had identified 3 colossal structures serving as the hive's primary consensus generators, massive biological mechanical hybrids that coordinated the hive's quintillions of individual components. While the main Federation fleet engaged in diversionary attacks across multiple sectors, drawing hive defenses away from these critical nodes, 3 small teams would strike at the hive's true vulnerability. "Remember," Wong briefed her mixed team of humans and Federation special operatives, "we're not here to destroy. We're here to transform." The insertion was harrowing. Detection would mean instant annihilation. Using cloaking technology based on the same principles as their sensor camouflage, the teams penetrated the hive structures, moving through pulsating corridors that seemed simultaneously mechanical and alive. "It's beautiful," whispered Dr. Chen as she studied the computational architecture around them. "Horrifying, but beautiful." The hive had evolved a perfect integration of biological and technological components, creating processing systems that made Federation quantum computers seem primitive by comparison. At the heart of each node, the teams planted not explosives but devices humans called chaos engines, quantum processors that generated true mathematical randomness. The hive operated on perfect deterministic algorithms, every outcome predictable, every process optimized. True randomness was anathema to its very nature, like introducing free will to a perfectly regimented society, explained Tanaka from the command center, monitoring the team's progress. "The concept itself is destabilizing." As Wong's team completed their installation and began extraction, disaster struck. A hive guardian, a massive entity resembling a metallic spider with hundreds of sensory appendages, detected their presence. Wong found herself separated from her team as corridors sealed around them. "Get to the extraction point," she ordered through the communication link. "I'll find another way." Trapped and pursued, Wong made an impossible choice. Instead of fighting to escape, she fought her way deeper, toward the secondary control junction they had identified during planning. With hive sentinels closing in, she manually activated her chaos engine ahead of schedule and interfaced her neural augmentation directly with the hive system. Throughout Federation space, the synchronized activation of the other chaos engines sent cascading disruptions through the hive consciousness. Ship formations dissolved as individual vessels suddenly found themselves capable of independent thought. Some continued attacking, others withdrew in confusion, and a significant number simply powered down as if overwhelmed by their newfound individuality. At the extraction point, Dr. Chen watched with growing concern as 2 teams returned without Wang. "Her life signs are still active," she reported, "but her neural patterns are changing." On the view screen, the massive hive structure began to pulse with unfamiliar patterns of energy, neither the perfect symmetry of the collective nor the chaos of disruption, but something entirely new. The council chamber fell silent as the massive doors parted to admit an unprecedented delegation. 3 Vesperi representatives, their crystalline forms no longer identical but uniquely shaped, accompanied by General Wang. 3 months had passed since Operation Chaos. Wang's neural connection to the hive had been expected to kill her. Instead, she had become something unprecedented, a bridge between human individuality and hive connectivity. Her eyes now shimmered with the same crystalline quality as her companions, while her human determination remained unmistakable. "We come seeking understanding, not surrender," Wang announced, her voice carrying unusual harmonic overtones. "The Vesperi collective has fragmented into thousands of independent factions. Those I represent seek coexistence rather than consumption." Elena, newly appointed as head of the Federation's Strategic Adaptation Department, stepped forward to meet her transformed colleague. The 2 humans, one change, one not, clasped hands in a moment broadcast throughout Federation space. "What happened to you?" Elena whispered. Wang smiled, the expression both familiar and alien on her altered features. "I showed them conflict's true gift," she replied. "Not destruction, but evolution." She explained how her direct neural connection had introduced human concepts of individuality, choice, and constructive disagreement into the hive consciousness. For a species that had evolved through perfect consensus, the idea of beneficial conflict had been revolutionary. Many Vesperi rejected individuality and retreated to deep space, Wang acknowledged. Others embraced it too fully and became destructively chaotic. But these, she gestured to her companions, discovered balance. They've experienced the creative potential of controlled conflict. The Diraxian ambassador approached, his earlier arrogance permanently humbled. "We misunderstood what you meant," he admitted to Elena, mandibles clicking softly. "When you said you would present us conflict, we assumed you meant warfare. But you presented us with a way of thinking, a perspective that embraces contradiction and uncertainty as sources of strength." Elena nodded, watching as Federation representatives cautiously engage with the transformed Vesperi. Throughout human history, conflict has been our greatest teacher. It forces adaptation, creativity, and cooperation. Without conflict, there is no growth. As the council session proceeded, Dr. Tanaka observed from the gallery, annotating his neural recordings. "Fascinating," he murmured to Dr. Chen beside him. "The Federation's social dynamics are already changing. Look at how the Aldebarans are actually debating with the Proxians rather than deferring as protocol would dictate." Chen smiled. "The introduction of beneficial conflict into a stagnant system. This is what we do best." 6 months later, as the first Vesperi representative took her place on the reorganized council, now called the Assembly of Diverse Perspectives, Elena watched with quiet pride. The Federation had been transformed, incorporating human principles of constructive disagreement and adaptive thinking into their previously rigid structures. In the central display, newly established cultural exchange programs showed Federation citizens engaging with both humans and reformed Vesperi, learning from their different approaches. Research collaborations combining multiple species' perspectives were already producing technological advances that none could have achieved alone. "You know, they still talk about your first speech," Wong told Elena as they observed the assembly in session. Her appearance had stabilized, part human, part Vesperi, something genuinely new in the galaxy. "We shall present you conflict. You certainly delivered on that promise." Elena smiled, watching as a spirited debate between 5 species produced a novel solution to a resource distribution problem. "Humanity's gift to the stars wasn't technology or military might," she replied, "but something far more precious, the adaptive power of constructive conflict." And across the Federation, formerly stagnant civilizations flourished in this new paradigm, learning what humans had known since their earliest days, that from the clash of different perspectives comes the spark of innovation, and that true resilience comes not from avoiding conflict, but from embracing it as the engine of growth.